Because of the advancements in technology and Gen AI specifically, you can go from idea to launch so quickly, taking that slight pause to assess, are you solving a real customer problem? And is the solution you're building something that will continue to be a durable solution to that problem, if that makes sense?
So really stopping and spending time in understanding the problem before you're rushing to the solution.
Yeah, it's easier than ever to just build. But in order to, build a successful company, you need to make sure you're building something that your customers or your users actually want and need and will use ongoing.
We acknowledge the Gayamagal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. The best career advice won't come from an AI prompt. It comes from the people who've lived it. Welcome to Tech Careers Hotline, brought to you by the Tech Council of Australia. I'm your host, Adair Robbins, and this is a podcast for anybody who's curious about a career in tech. We put real questions from real people to the leaders and builders of tomorrow. Let's begin. My guest today is Mindy Eiermann, VP of Product and Design at Culture Amp, one of Australia's biggest tech success stories. And her career story is amazing. She had no formal technical training. She studied Asian studies and Mandarin and was heading to law school, but decided to join a startup instead, and the rest is history. Today, the products she brings to life help over 25 million employees worldwide measure and improve culture, performance, and employee experience. And she got there without a single line of code on her CV. I've been really looking forward to this one. Mindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Great to have you. You studied Asian studies and Mandarin at UT Austin, Middlebury, and Nanjing University in China. So how did that path lead you to eventually heading up a product at a global tech company in Australia?
Yeah, it was definitely a roundabout path. After uni, I thought I was going to go to law school and instead ended up working at a startup in Palo Alto. But the through line that gets me from there to here is a passion for understanding what makes people tick, what motivates people, and how that's different across different cultures, backgrounds, and experiences. So that's both relevant in the ways that I work and I lead, but also in how I think about understanding and solving customer problems. So I've been really lucky to work for global companies and in global roles where I get to partner with and support and learn from people all over the world. In Australia, of course, my adopted home, but also the US, UK, India, Mexico, Brazil, Southeast Asia. And it's a real privilege to have that experience and exposure. But specifically, how did I end up studying Chinese and living in Nanjing? I went on a high school trip my senior year to Beijing, and I was fascinated and I wanted to learn more.
Tell us a little bit about that first job at the startup. What did that experience teach you?
Everything. I was so lucky at such a young age, at just the very start of my career, to be part of a successful startup journey. The most important thing I learned that I still apply and work every day is the idea of falling in love with the problem and not the solution. I think that's more important now than it's ever been because of the advancements in technology and Gen AI specifically. You can go from idea to launch so quickly, and taking that, at least slight pause to assess, are you solving a real customer problem? And is the solution you're building something that will continue to be a durable solution to that problem, if that makes sense?
So really stopping and spending time in understanding the problem before you're rushing to the solution.
Yeah, it's easier than ever to just build. But in order to, build a successful company, you need to make sure you're building something that your customers or your users actually want and need and will use ongoing.
You've worked at a number of different companies. You've been across fintech, wellbeing, HR tech, all very different spaces. What's been the through line for you in your career?
When I was interviewing for the role at Culture Amp, and talking with other companies as well, it's something I realized that I hadn't fully appreciated before is that I like working in spaces that are heavily regulated, where there are hard rules like payments and payroll, accounting and healthcare, and more recently, data privacy. And you have to
Mm.
figure out how to innovate within the confines of those rules. So I know that's not going to sound attractive to everyone, but I'm a bit of a geek in that I appreciate a government website with clearly written policy documentation and figuring out how to innovate in that space.
What has been the most influential career advice you've ever been given?
Dominic Allen, who was one of my managers at Intuit, and he asked me the question, what do you want the high water mark of your career to be? And he
Mm.
made clear to me that it was up to me to answer that question and then share the answer with others. And so there were really 2 points there. One is that only you know what that looks like for you. And that's different for everyone, what that high watermark looks like. What are you aiming for in the long
Mm.
run? So you have to figure that out for yourself, and others can help you with that journey, but it is really going to be specific to you. And then the other point is if you don't tell others, they can't help you. So he both really helped me in figuring out what I wanted to do with my career, but also helping me to be much bolder and sharing that path with others so that I actually had a group of champions with me along on that journey. It's been really powerful for me.
What was it for you? Was it achieving something, gaining skills? Like, how did you define it then?
At the time, I was trying to figure out if I wanted to stay down the path of being a product leader or maybe go more down a GM type path. At the time, I had peers who were now CEOs of companies. And so I had to decide, do I want to take on leadership roles in different areas of the organization so I'm building out my skill set beyond core product, or I really more passionate about staying within product? For me, the decision was I want to stay in product. This is what I really love and enjoy, and I want to continue to build my skill set in this path in the next phase of my career.
That part about telling people what you want to do, that can be very confronting, and also sharing your wins. A lot of people prefer to just do good work and it be noticed. How have you worked through that over your career?
Yeah, it's in big and small ways. So, firstly, sharing openly the things that are important to you and the things that you want your life to be made up. I mean, honestly, ending up in Australia, that's even an example for me where earlier in my career, when I was working in California in Mountain View, I shared with my manager and some of the leaders at the time, I'd really like an international experience in my career. I'd love
Mm.
that opportunity for my family, and I didn't know it was going to be Australia. But when the opportunity opened up in Sydney, they came to me and asked, "How does this sound?" And 10 years later, I'm a citizen and this is home. And so that's just an example where if I hadn't said that, they wouldn't have known to think of me for that opportunity when it came up years later. I think there are smaller examples as well. Like if you're working on something um, in your day to day that you've identified as an opportunity, or maybe you've received feedback from others or your manager, if you find kind of your group of trusted advisors to whom you can say, hey, I'm just as an example, I'm working on trying not to cut people off in meetings or trying not to cut people off in video conferences. Can you look out for me on that and call me out? DM me, but let me know if you see that happening because I need help getting past this moment. And I think generally what you will find is lots of people will lean in to help you if you let them know it's something that you're working on.
Actively seeking out that feedback from a group of people around you. So you've moved in lots of different companies. How do you kind of build that group of advisors wherever you move?
I'm a people person, so I focus a lot of energy into building those relationships and making real connections, understanding like, what can I do to help this person? What do I need from them to help me to be successful? But also understanding what's going on in their lives outside of
Mm.
work. And so I'm really deliberate in creating that time in person when possible. That's not always possible given the distributed nature of work these days. But when
Mm.
I am in person, focusing more on getting to know people and building relationship and trust so that then when we get to the hard moments, we've done that hard work to build trust and so that we can work through hard
Mm.
things together down the line.
Are you working mostly remotely or are you in office? What's the setup for you?
Yeah, I'm in Sydney and most of my team is in Melbourne. We are a global company, so also have colleagues in San Francisco. And I was just out in London and Berlin visiting the
Mm.
offices there. But most of my interactions are over video. We come together for bigger kind of in person workshop moments, which I really enjoy that face to face time.
Amazing. At Sonder, you were the chief product officer of a safety and mental health app. So, how did that shape the way that you think about building products?
It was the first time at Sonder that I was building for enterprise customers, and I needed to think about both the buyer or the HR leader profile as well as the employee profile. And given the size of organizations that Sonder serves, really many different employee profiles. That's very different than at Intuit, where I was solving for small businesses, which behave very similarly to consumer, and the buyer and the user is the same person. So that was a really important learning for me. The other dynamic, which I really loved at Sonder, was working with the clinicians and the safety experts whose backgrounds were just totally different from my own. And that was really rewarding in that I learned so much in areas that I knew very little about coming into the role. And then the other thing I would say about Sonder is the level of risk management when you're working in that space. That was next level. And that was really thanks to Pete, who's one of the co-founders and was the COO at the time. I learned a lot from Pete. And all of that has been relevant for me at Culture Amp as well, because it's a very similar buyer profile. We don't have clinicians at Culture Amp, but we have people scientists. And there are
Mm.
similar dynamics and how you incorporate that deep expertise into the product development process.
For those who don't know, what does Culture Amp do and what does your job actually look like day to day?
Culture Amp is an Australian founded company that started with a focus on employee engagement surveys. Over time, the company has expanded to transform how organizations measure and drive positive change across employee experience, performance and development, and culture more broadly. So today we're helping chief HR officers and chief people officers address the pressure that we're all facing and how do we drive peak performance while navigating AI transformation and tightening
Mm.
budgets without burning ourselves or our people out. At Culture Amp, I'm the VP of Product and Design for our flagship engagement product, as well as all of our AI capabilities and our platform teams.
How do you measure culture?
The Culture Amp platform is all about making culture legible. So there's no hiding from the data. And in fact, that's something that we lean into. We can see very quickly when something is drifting, like energy or trust or clarity or
Mm.
alignment. And the platform helps us to stay accountable as leaders to our teams. And internally, it's something we take very seriously. We refer to ourselves as customer zero.
Love it.
We're using the products that we're building and we're holding ourselves accountable to the same standards we're asking of our customers. So it's how we set goals, it's how we run performance reviews. We use our AI tools every single day. And the team that I lead
Mm.
is responsible for many of those products. So it definitely brings focus and purpose to our work, but also heightens the emphasis and importance of getting the culture right within our team. That's a challenge for us, just like for anyone else. And so we really rely on these tools to help us focus on the right things to drive change for our teams.
Amazing that you use it yourselves. So, for someone who's never used it before, how is that data getting through?
The combination of employee engagement surveys so that employees can provide feedback on a regular cadence, giving
Mm.
and receiving feedback, writing performance reviews. We're in the midst of our performance cycle. I just got my performance review this morning. We've just recently launched our AI coach capability. And so I was able to use AI coach as a tool to help me both write feedback for my peers, but also to synthesize the feedback and
Mm.
self-assessment from my own direct reports, and then use that to write my manager reviews. And it's not just that it's a time saver, which it is, but the ways in which we've approached building the AI coach is that it's got all of this people science expertise baked into it and appropriate guardrails so that as I'm both writing feedback and synthesizing, it's holding me to a high
Mm.
standard and a high quality of feedback and review for my direct reports and for my coworkers.
Making managers' lives easier and teams' lives as
Absolutely.
well.
Both making managers' lives easier and helping ensure that employees get the kind of quality feedback that they
Mm.
need to know where to focus.
How are you using AI in your work and maybe outside of work as well?
We're using some of the Culture Amp tools. At work, we also use Gemini and Glean and Notebook LM and Gong agents for things like summarization and comparison and synthesis. I do use the AI Coach product a lot, and I really love it, not just for writing feedback and performance reviews, but also if there's ever a tricky interaction or a difficult conversation I need to have, I'll go and role play that with Coach before I
Mm.
jump in. And
Yeah.
then outside of work, Claude is one of my closest friends, so I go to Claude for advice and support on a huge variety of topics.
You're building a product that measures how people feel at work. Where does AI belong in something as personal as performance and engagement? And where doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the way that we think about it at Culture Amp and that I think about it generally as well is that it's there to strengthen the system, not to replace human judgment. And so we view AI as a multiplier for meaning and purpose, time saving, quality, effectiveness. But at the end of the day, there's always human judgment involved in how you're using the tools. Within Culture Amp's product offering, any decision that you're making around promotion or a decision to exit someone or a performance review, that's a decision made by a human and a people
Mm,
leader in this case. And
yeah.
that's really important because the moment AI becomes the de facto decision maker on people decisions, you're in dangerous territory on bias and trust and accountability. So we design all of our AI assisted solutions as just that, assisted with a human in the loop.
Yeah, great. Can you explain for somebody who's never heard of it before, what is product management?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is an evolving field for anyone that's done a little bit of research, but I think at the heart of it is understanding the problem or opportunity, and that's both looking at your customer base, your prospect list, the market more broadly, and then synthesizing that into an inspiring vision and then into action. And so your job is to identify what are the problems you should go after and explain
Hmm.
why you should go after them in a way that builds confidence and alignment with all of the functions that you're working with. And so actually, one of the tricky things about product management is from the very beginning, you're in a position of driving through influence and not through direct control. So you'll have peers in engineering and design and legal and privacy and other functions. And you're on the hook for building the case on what you should build and why. And then, of course, working with that same group of people to get to the specificity of exactly what you're going to build and how you're going to approach that build and what you're going to release when, and then the constant trade off decisions that come every step of the way
Mm,
to keep um, to keep your team focused on the most important things for your customer and for your business.
that's so interesting. So could an analogy be in film like the director is the product manager or is it someone else?
I maybe a little bit like a conductor
Mm,
because your coworkers are experts in their own right and they have expertise that you don't have. But you're the one who's there to stitch it all together into a cohesive and high value outcome or capability that you're releasing to your customers.
and I guess you can see the audience, you can see the customers and you're feeding off both the musicians and the audience.
Oh, I like that. You took it even further. I like that.
How is AI changing the role of a product manager?
Yeah, well, you can get to things like understanding and synthesis of customer feedback, customer pain, market dynamics faster than ever before. So
Mm.
our PMs are using tools like Glean and Gong and Notebook LM to do that kind of quick synthesis. They're also building agents to help them both write documentation but assess documentation. One of the PM directors on my team has just built this agent to help him analyze the kind of initiative one pagers that his team is preparing to, and he's trained it on the specific criteria that he wants to be looking for. And I think the most exciting thing is just leaning in and trying and learning from each other because truthfully, we're all learning together right now.
Totally.
And I think we
Yeah.
don't yet know what the full capability or opportunity is.
For somebody thinking about product management, what would be something that a product manager would produce? What's the kind of immediate output of a product manager?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's definitely documentation, but if you think about the priority day to day, it is the communication, collaboration, and alignment. So ensuring that every single day that the team with which you're working understands kind of what you're driving towards, how the bit that they're working on fits into that puzzle, and that you're progressing on that every single day. Also making sure, it's easy to for anyone to go off course and think we could do a little bit more here or a little bit more there, and things can get very big very quickly. So it's like also checking in, like, are we focusing on the minimum we need to do here to actually get something out into the real world and start learning?
Mm,
So it's a lot
yep.
of orchestration of all of those different pieces. And then documentation is a big part of it. But things like note taking really help with that. Today, that's easier than ever before.
Yeah, great. So that leads us to some questions that we have submitted by listeners.
When hiring PMs, what do you actually care about? Is it credentials, hands on experience, or is it more of a mindset thing? And in today's world, do degrees still actually matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that changed for me when I came to Australia from the US, because in the US, I was used to the idea that you would look for a certain set of universities as a target, or, particular companies that somebody had come from. And I think that's still true in some places, but it was really enlightening for me coming to Australia and realizing all of the different paths that people take into the workforce. And a lot of, what would have been non-traditional paths in the US where people haven't even gone to university. And that's okay because they've got some relevant experience or applicable learning that makes them a good fit. When I kind of summarize what I'm looking for somebody that would be coming into a product management role, it is a curiosity, like a curious mind, learning mindset, because so much of the work is understanding the needs, the pains, the opportunities, and you really have to be willing to dig deep to get to the richness in that. And then commitment, because going from that understanding or idea to execution and launch is hard work, and like you're going to face challenges every single day, and being somebody that can really thrive in that kind of, I think about it as grit, like can thrive in that environment and yourself stay motivated, but also motivate a large group of people who are in it with you to make it successful. That's a pretty unique skill set.
How do you see that on a CV? Is there any things that you look out for?
Yeah, well, I would look at, not even just jobs, but what did this person study? Like, is there an indication that they've gone really deep into a topic about which they're curious? What commitment did they make? Did they put themselves out there in a way? And that could be like, a lot of people today have they've done like a startup as a side hustle, or they've done board work, or they've started a foundation. Like, there's all sorts of examples where that could come to life. And I think it's going to be different for different people. But it is that combination of like curiosity and passion and commitment to see something through.
Great. Thanks for sharing.
Hi, my name is Kaylee and I am a TOI alumna and a student at Endeavour Sports High School. My question for Mindy today is, if you were a high school student again today, what skills and experiences would you focus on for a career in technology?
Thanks for the question, Kaylee. It's a really great question. And shout out to Endeavor. We have a family friend at the school as well. My main advice would be to stay curious. The key skill is curiosity, because technology is changing so fast. And right now it's on an exponential curve. We can't predict exactly where it's headed. But if you're curious about the fundamentals of how and why technology works, not just how to use it, but how it comes together, I think that's what's going to set you up for success, because a career in technology is committing yourself to lifelong learning. Technology never stops changing, and a curious mind makes that learning a passion. And so holding on to that curiosity and passion in everything you do would be my advice, Kaylee, for what this future might look like for you.
Great advice. So if someone wants to get into product today, but they don't have any tech background, where would they start? What would be one practical step they could take today?
One thing I would say going back to our earlier conversation is if that's what you want, tell people that's what you want. I've
Mm.
had multiple examples where coworkers in other functions, sales or customer success, as an example, have come to me and said, "I'm really curious about this. Where do you think I could get started?" And I've been able to then unpack with them, well, why are you curious about it? What are the things you think you would like about this? And then even create opportunities like little projects or secondments so that they could dip their toes in the water and figure out if this was the right career path for them or not. And interestingly, I can think about three examples where for two people, that was absolutely the right path and they loved it. And that started with a small project, just experimenting, testing it out. Is this for me? And then there's a third person where he figured out, actually, I don't like this. This isn't what I want at all. So again, it's that point of if there's something that you're interested in, and this isn't specific to product management, like really anything you're interested in, let people know. And that could be within your existing organization, it could be within your network, it could be being bold and reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn and saying, "Hey, I'd like to
Mhm.
learn more about what you do. That's a career path I'd like to pursue," then I think more often than not, you will find there are people out there willing to help you figure that out and take that next step for you.
Great advice. I'm sure you get hit up on LinkedIn a lot. Is there any kind of messaging or phrasing that works?
I try to say yes as often as I can. In the last week, I've had three people reach out where it's somebody that I've worked with before reaching out on behalf of a friend. So they've tapped into my network to connect to me and asked for a coffee or I had a quick call with somebody yesterday. So I think find those connections so that you have a
Mhm.
warm introduction and also be patient because people are busy. And just because I don't respond the first time that doesn't mean I'm not going to respond or make myself available. So, understand that the reality is people have things going on, but that doesn't mean you're not a priority or that they won't find the time for you eventually.
What is the hardest part about your role as a VP of product that people wouldn't see from the outside?
Two things come to mind. One is um, translating vision to strategy and outcomes. And that is hard work, is taking a big idea and figuring out how do I break this into specific manageable pieces in a way that my team is going to get excited about and believe and get behind. And then just constant judgment calls, just the trade offs, the decision making every single day. The truth is, there's so many things that we could be doing, so many things that we could go after. This is definitely came up when I was just in Berlin and London because I was spending time with team members and with customers. That process that you have to go through to assess all of the possibilities and align on of 1,000 good ideas, what are the 10 that you're going to go after? And then be able to articulate that in a way that people can get behind, even if it means that their thing is not the thing you're going to focus on. That's hard. And that
Yeah.
requires a lot of careful thought and consideration, and then really compelling communication to help people understand and get behind that.
What do you do to help them understand the why?
I'm a very collaborative leader, so I really do try very hard to take in input and consideration from all sorts of people with different experience and expertise than my own. And I try to, well, my team will laugh if they listen to this because I'll say, I want to say the three options, pros and cons, and the recommendation. I think I learned that from Catherine Morris. Shout out to Catherine. So I try to lay it out in a logical way. Like I want to consider at least three options to demonstrate that I've actually thought through more than one option, or I'll ask my team to do this the same, and then clearly lay out in a sort of neutral, non-biased way, why should we consider these three options, but also come to the table with a recommendation for discussion. And then normally I will have a discussion that helps me land to the end point because I do like to hear the
Mm.
challenges or maybe things that I haven't thought of along the way. So I'm not somebody that frequently makes a really big decision on my own and then has to get everybody on board with that decision. I do a lot of pre-work to drive that alignment in advance.
Yeah, that's a great tip for people putting the three options, the pros and cons, and then the recommendation. I think that's something I can use in my work too. As a VP, as a people leader, I'm sure your calendar is absolutely full. How do you schedule that time for deep thinking?
Yeah. I'm pretty relentless about calendar management, actually. And at Culture Amp, we made the decision about a year and a half ago to block off deep work time for everyone within the product
Mm.
group. So Tuesday mornings and Wednesday afternoons, we have these blocks of time. Stuff still comes up, but it's meant to be time where you can either do that kind of deep work thinking on your own, or you come together with a smaller group, maybe at a time that hasn't been pre-scheduled. So that works really well for me. And then the other thing I do is Friday or even Sunday evening, if I haven't gotten to it, I'll go through my calendar for the week ahead, sometimes 2 weeks out, and just make sure that I'm focusing on the most important things and that I have blocks of time in between intense blocks of meetings so that I can process. I live in Sydney and I'm right by the coastal walk, so I'll go for walks to do my thinking and processing and sometimes call somebody and
Mm.
talk through something as I'm walking, but I make sure that I have that time in my day as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess that's the benefit too of being in a remote distributed team as well, that you can kind of make your schedule to a certain degree work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I still work more or less regular business hours, but
Mm.
I'm prioritizing within those hours to make sure I have that balance right.
Yeah, amazing. Mindy, looking back, what's one assumption you had about your career that you've changed your mind around?
Yeah, it is something that I learned from my time at Sonder when I was in the chief product officer role. And we didn't have an engineering leader at the time that was a peer to me. So I was leading the engineering organization as well. And what I really liked about that is I was able to work across PM, design, and engineering and drive like a, a much better level of alignment than I ever had before. But what I missed is having a peer in engineering and design as well. And I didn't realize how important that was to me. And it's something that I have now at Culture Amp and I value so much. So it was, sometimes you're really keen on the rush to the top. And what I realized is, yes, I love and I'm very privileged to be in a leadership role, but I really get a lot of joy out of that collaboration and like healthy sparring and debate with my peers in engineering and design. And so that's something that I need in a role that I'm in.
You don't have any technical training, right? Everything is learnt on the job. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like from a very young age. My dad is a mechanical engineer and he was always we were the first kids to have Nintendo and we had laser discs and MIDI discs. He was an early adopter of technology generally and he influenced me from the very beginning down this path. And it wasn't something I planned or expected. I did stumble into it when I started my career in Palo Alto, but I think my dad's passion for technology had an influence on me in that regard.
Incredible. So looking forward 10, 20 years even, what do you think future Mindy will be thinking about or grappling with or working on?
That is such a hard question, Adair. I think that's a harder question than ever before, but even I look back 10, 15 years, I had no idea I'd be living in Australia. I don't know. I feel like it's so much changing day to day, month to month. I mean, I have a sense
Mm.
of the things that are most important to me and that I want in my life, but I don't know exactly what I'll be thinking about looking back on this career that far out. It's hard to predict.
I feel like now more than ever, the future feels uncertain in a way, but I guess that's what's exciting too. There is just so much opportunity.
And just staying open to what comes along the way.
Mindy, thank you so, so much for your time. It's been so great to speak with you.
Thanks, Adair.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Tech Careers Hotline today. And if you did, please help us out by subscribing, leaving us a review, or even share it with someone who you think might find value from it today. Until next time.